Ivan, what have you done to Kelly? What have I done to her? I was so good to her as a child. She went too far. After that night, I broke up with Cheryl. I knew I didn't like her anymore. Maybe I didn't like her that much in the first place. It was just a rebellious streak. I just never got it. It wasn't guilt that made me feel the way I did about Kelly. It's just that I lost myself in a moment of youthful glamour with a Cheryl. I went looking for Kelly. I searched all night, but I couldn't find her. She blacked out on me. I couldn't get through. Then something occurred to me. I went to the hospital, and I did find her. She's in the oncology department. I don't believe it. I'd rather believe it was Kelly's way of getting me back. But she's really dying. The doctor said she's deteriorating fast and chemo won't help. I went around to friends and asked for advice on for unmedical technology. Then, I found an authoritative hospital. I sent them a letter about Kelly's condition. They said it wasn't a big deal, but we could try there. So I went to see Kelly. When I was there, I saw a flower shop in front of the hospital. I suddenly remembered. I've never sent Kelly any flowers. On the contrary, she wrapped a bouquet of flowers for me. But I threw them in the rubbish bin on the spot. I was an animal. I quickly picked out a bouquet of flowers and took them to the hospital. Kelly thought I'd come to ask him to beg Grandpa to make Cheryl and me happy. And I didn't explain. I thought I had my pride in front of her. I told her to go abroad. I told her it wasn't serious. In fact, it was just my way of comforting her. I was comforting myself. She rejected my kindness and drove me away like a madman. I panicked. For the first time, I deeply felt hurt, disgust, and rejection of me. But I didn't give up. I wanted to stay with her in her treatment. But that day, Kelly really scared me. I could only go to see her secretly in the middle of the night. The carer stopped me before. I guess they were moved by me and let me in. I could only watch her after she fell asleep. I watched her lose so much weight. My heart ached so much when I looked at her. Suddenly, she woke up in the middle of the night. I was really scared again. I was about to leave, but she stopped me. She asked me why I did it. I finally said it. That I loved her. She listed many things. Of all the things I'd done to her, pride and self-respect are really bullshit. I got down on my knees in front of her. I don't want anything else now. I just want her to forgive me. I just want her to believe that I really love her. I love her so much. But Kelly says she doesn't like me anymore. She doesn't like me at all. It's a quick retribution. I'm still in front of Kelly all the time. She was getting worse and worse. She didn't have the strength to fight me. But I don't dare go near her. I could see the disgust in her eyes every time. After her third chemotherapy treatment, she's as fragile as a piece of white paper. She'll fall down with the slightest blow. I wanted to hold her so badly. I asked her if I could. The look in her eyes told me. It was disgusting. Then I stayed with her, disappearing for a while. It's not that she bothers me. It's just that a lot of the time, I get wet just looking at her. I could only hide away and vent like crazy. And suppress it. I'd rather be the one who gets sick. I'm so bad I deserve to die. She's so nice. Why can't she be treated gently? That day Kelly suddenly cried. For so long, I haven't seen her cry once. She's really strong and scary. And she was so strong it hurt. The reason she cried was because she looked in the mirror. Actually, I removed the mirror from the ward. But she didn't realize there was no mirror in the bathroom. I was afraid that she wouldn't be able to cope with the way she looked. Kelly was a beautiful girl. Whenever she wore a new dress, she would ask me if it looked good. Yes, she always looked good. During the time when Kelly's health was deteriorating, Cheryl suddenly contacted me like crazy after we broke up. I ignored her. Then I don't know how she found her way to the hospital. She followed me too. I didn't want her to bother Kelly. I knew Kelly didn't want to see me drag her away. She asked me for money. I didn't. I gave her a lot of money when we broke up. I felt like I owed her something. But my grandfather told me I didn't. I didn't like her. She didn't like me that much either. And then Grandpa told me. When he asked Cheryl to break up with me, Cheryl asked for the money. The last time I broke up with Cheryl, she took the money and left. And this time it was because she was cheated of her money. So she thought of me again. She really doesn't love me that much. And the one who was all about me with all her heart and all her eyes. I was stupid enough to lose her. When Cheryl didn't get the money, she threatened me with my nude photos. I went straight to the police. Not to mention the nude photos. I'm not afraid to die now. Cheryl was arrested. They found some drugs in her house. I asked my grandfather to pass the news on to Kelly. When Kelly asked my grandfather to help her with the aftermath, I stood outside the door listening. The carers were listening too. Kelly didn't leave anything behind. She really didn't have anything. It was so heavy that day. I couldn't even breathe. My grandfather buried her at her father's grave. He buried her next to her father's grave. I couldn't even touch her urn. Anti-carer extra. I cheated on my husband. I betrayed my husband and abandoned my daughter. My retribution came quickly. In less than 3 years, my husband stopped loving me. His children were always abusing me. I miss Kelly like crazy. But how could I go back? When Kelly was 12 years old, my ex-husband died. I went back to take her away. But I saw her being picked up by Ivan's family. His family is rich. Ivan won't suffer with them. But with me, he'll suffer. I didn't bother Kelly. I lived my miserable life in silence. Until Ivan's grandfather came to see me. He said Kelly had terminal cancer. He could arrange for me to take care of her. But he couldn't tell Kelly that I was her mother. I saw Kelly again. She had shaved her hair. She was so pale. So weak. So thin I wanted to hold her. But I didn't dare. I just took care of her. She likes to take walks. I walked with her all over the hospital. One day she asked me if I had a daughter too. I wanted to tell her the truth. But she told me that the two people she hated most were me. One of them was me. I didn't dare say a word. I was afraid I wouldn't even be qualified to take care of her. Then another person she hated came along. Ivan, her ex-husband. I don't know what they had against each other. All I know is that Kelly really hated him. And he loved her. She didn't want to see him. So he stood at the door of the sick bay night after night, watching over her. When Kelly fell asleep, then he dared to sneak in to see her. I saw his tears fall onto Kelly's pillow, just like I did. We're all hurting because we've hurt the ones we love the most. Kelly's condition got worse and worse. After the third chemo treatment, I heard the doctor say that the chemo was no longer effective. 3 months at the most. I don't know how many times I cried. I wanted to trade my life for Kelly's. She's 27 years old. She was so young. The day Ellie died, she said she wanted chocolate. I didn't even think about it. I went to get her some. I walked all over the streets. I found an old man selling chocolate. I bought one and took it back to Kelly with great joy. But I didn't realize, when I went back to see Kelly, she was dead, lying there peacefully. Suddenly, I had a flashback. Kelly waiting for me on the street with the chocolate. She was standing there all by herself, waiting for me. She was waiting for me. I suddenly understood. Kelly had already recognized me. She just hadn't forgiven me. After Kelly's death, I've been dwelling on the good old days. I lived with Kelly forever and ever. I never left, and she never died. We were a happy family. Grandpa Ivan. I buried Kelly as she wished. She really was a bitter child. When she got sick, I helped her contact her mother. I wasn't giving her a chance to make amends. I just didn't want Kelly to have any regrets. Kelly was smart enough to know she was her mother. Whether Kelly chooses to forgive or retaliate, that's Kelly's freedom. That day, I accidentally saw Kelly's mother on the street. Her hair was matted and she was a mess. She had a chocolate bar in her hand and she was yelling at the top of her lungs, "Kelly, baby, Mommy will take you to buy chocolate." Kelly's a good girl. Invisible vengeance is perhaps the most deadly of all. For her mother, and for my grandson. It's been 2 years. My grandson is still afraid to visit Carrie's grave. When she was buried, he can't go near it either. He said Kelly thought he was dirty. The 3rd year after Kelly's death, I buried my grandson next to Kelly's grave. I said to Kelly's tombstone, "Kelly, don't blame me." The boy really knew what he was doing. The autumn wind blew the leaves to the ground. End of story.